name's Jonathan. I'm the publicist for Griffin's Heart. So I've been working very closely with Reagan in the time leading up to the book being available, and trying to get it into the hands of people who can read it and offer sort of their thoughts and their quotes, so that we can kind of start the buzz rolling. So what we're going to do today for this kind of official Zoom launch event, Reagan's going to join us in a little bit. She's going to talk a little bit about the book. She's going to do some brief readings from the book, and tell you a little bit about why she wrote this book and what it means to her and what she hopes to achieve with it. So it's going to be really nice to hear from her. Then after the reading, we're going to do a Q&A with Reagan. And so if you want to be part of that, if you have any questions, you can put them into the chat. You can use the little raise my hand, hand raise function on Zoom, and then I can unmute you and you can ask your question to Reagan herself, however you want to do it. It's not a huge formal thing, but we want everybody to be able to be part of the dialogue if you want, and get your questions answered, and be part of the Griffin's Heart family. And then after that, we're going to do a little contest for admitting some more people here. We're going to do a little contest for 3 copies of the book. So 3 of you lucky people will go home, or at least with copies of the book in transit. More messages here from Amanda, from Marcella, from Shell, from Jessica, from Delane. Very nice. Okay, so I don't know how many of you have heard of Reagan Pasternak. Probably many. Probably a lot of you know Reagan. But for those of you who don't, Reagan is she's an accomplished film and television actress. She's has a long list of credits. Recent credits are Sharp Objects on HBO, Sci-Fi Channel, Winona Earp. She's currently working on BET's new series, Miss Pat. If you're nostalgic for Disney Channel things, she did In a Heartbeat about 20 years ago. So she has a long list of film and television credits. And for more information on that, you can visit IMDb. But what Reagan has done here is written this book, right? Griffin's Heart, mourning your pet with no apologies. It's impossible for me to overstate how incredible and unique Reagan's book is. There are not enough superlatives for this book, and I've read it a few times now. The term book doesn't even really do it justice. It's kind of this living, breathing partnership between Reagan and every reader. It's a guide. It's a just compassion-packed roadmap for navigating the loss of a pet, of an animal companion. And what Reagan's really doing here with this book, I think, is trying to change and shift the entire kind of way that we view animal grief and grieving for our pets, grieving for our animals. It's still kind of a thing where if somebody doesn't have an animal, somebody might not understand how intense and hard and long and deep and difficult the process is of grieving for a pet. It is really, really intense, and people deserve that intensity and deserve to take the time and the space to be able to do that. So Reagan's book is really about trying to give that to people and trying to shift that whole process. She, of course, has a number of pets herself and has had for many years, and knows the anguish and the pain of losing a beloved animal, beloved pet. And she'll tell you more about her own journey and what inspired her to write the book in just a little bit. But one thing that I think people who read this book will see and will experience for themselves is that it is just written with so much love and so much compassion. And that's just who Reagan is. I mean, that's just, you'll get to know her through the pages of this book. And it's not only a memoir, of course, where you hear about Reagan and you learn about her story, but an interactive journal and a keepsake, where you'll be able to commemorate, and people who buy it will be able to commemorate their own pets. So it really kind of becomes a lasting tribute to your own animal. And this is, I think, something that's really timely during the pandemic, when grieving in general has become a much more solitary, isolating process, and that can feel very, very lonely and just very cold, very difficult. And so the hope is that Reagan's book, can make you feel less alone, can make you feel like she's right there and understanding what you're going through, and that's a big part of why she wrote it. And before she comes on, I just want to share with you a few of the lovely words that have been said, by folks about who have read Reagan's book and who have offered their thoughts. So here's the first one. So Reagan Pasternak has written a beautiful, easy to read book to support those who are experiencing grief from pet loss. Interspersed with her own story, she offers tools, resources, and journaling exercises to help readers release their pain and soothe their heart. Full of compassion and heartfelt wisdom, this book is a must-have for animal lovers who are looking for support and healing. And that is from Tamara Levitt, who I believe is joining us today. And she is the head of mindfulness at Calm, and author of The Secret to Clara's Calm and Happiness Doesn't Come from Headstands. Here is another quote. Finally, a book that honors the grief connected to the loss of a significant source of support for so many. Thank you, Reagan, for providing a protected space to grieve. I highly endorse this book for anyone grieving the loss of an animal friend. And that is from Dr. Rebecca Bailey. She's the author of Safe Kids, Smart Parents, What Parents Need to Know to Keep Their Children Safe, and director of Transitioning Families. And the last quote I am going to leave you with before we bring Reagan out to tell you more and to do some reading. Here's the quote. I know for me, animals have always been a major source of comfort. Our pets give us so much unconditional love that when we lose them, it can feel like our world stops. This book provides a space to honor the loss of our amazing friends and have their memory forever live on, if only through our hearts and these pages. And that is from two-time New York Times bestselling author, J.C. Dugard, the founder of the Jace Foundation. So at this point, I think once she's ready to go, we will hear from Reagan, and she's going to come and she's going to talk about the book and read us some passages. There she is.
Hi.
Great. So I'm going to mute myself now, and Reagan is going to talk to you a little bit more about the book, and then she's going to do some readings. So enjoy.
Okay, everybody can hear me? Yes, okay. First of all, Jonathan, that was so sweet that it made me cry, and I had an eyelash extension that fell off. So I just am back in a huff right now. So thank you so much. Those were the sweetest words. I was overwhelmed, actually. It really was. So thank you guys so much for coming. I'm going to warn you at the beginning, my good friends know this about me. I'm too in touch with my emotions, so I probably will be shedding tears. Just ignore it and just pretend it's not happening. And I really appreciate everybody coming, because I know we all have Zoom fatigue these days. So I'm extra grateful for you guys being here tonight. So I guess I'll start just saying that I started this book over 10 years ago now, which is crazy to me. And I started writing it because the loss of my soulmate animal, Griffin, and I was in such pain from it, and I felt so isolated with this pain, and I actually felt physical heartbreak, and I just didn't feel comfortable talking about it with people. I felt like it was a grief that wasn't, I call it in my book, well, it's not my term, but it's called disenfranchised grief. And I write about that in the book a lot. where society doesn't really take it as seriously as other forms of grief. And I would stop and start, and I would inevitably meet other people who are feeling the exact same way. And, there are 85 million pet owners in the US. That is crazy. That's a lot of people who have pets. And I started knowing that I was not the only person feeling like this. And I could not quite find the exact resource that I needed. And I tried, but I just couldn't. I found everything a little too cerebral. And when you're feeling in grief, you don't want to be, sorting through, a 500-page document. Basically, it's you're just in such a bad place. So I would stop and start. And part of it was that I just didn't know what I wanted the book to be. And so about 2 years ago, I had some amazing guidance from my amazing editor, and I buckled down and I realized what I wanted it to be was not just a book. And so I wanted it to be super interactive. I wanted it to be conversational. I wanted the reader to feel like I was sitting with them the whole time. And I wanted it to be a keepsake. That was the other part of it. And I have it here to show you. It comes in a box. It's beautiful. It's all good quality. It's environmentally as ethically sourced as we could make it. We tried to make the quality beautiful so that there's places for photos, and there are definite memoir aspects to the book. But as you continue with it, your memoirs are on the pages beside mine. So there's a chapter called "The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face," and it's about the first time you see your being. I call them beings throughout the book, by the way. So the first time you ever see your animal, your being, and then you'll read my story, then you write your story. And that 10 years of back and forth, the good thing that was going on was that I was also, I'm a huge bookworm. I was consuming, a plethora of books. I was reading Carl Jung. I was reading, who talks about, what we resist persists. I was reading tons of Brene Brown, who talks about vulnerability. I was reading Jill Bolt Taylor, who talks about the right and left hemispheres of your brain, and John Sarno, who talks about mind-body connection. And those amazing minds and authors were inadvertently influencing and infiltrating the way I was perceiving and in turn writing about grief. And so I really incorporated those into healing exercises, is what I call them. But I try to keep it quirky, for lack of a better word. I try to keep it conversational, and although I definitely try to create the space to unload the harder parts of this kind of loss, I also try to lead you to the lighter parts. And I was reading a ton of cognitive therapy exercises as well, and almost rewiring the way we think about things. So yeah, I'm going to show you a little bit inside. Actually, one of our cats passed away a couple weeks ago, which is so sad. So I put a little photo of him in there so you can see there's all these places for photos, and I did some journaling beside it. So, and I mean, the artwork inside there's most of it's writing, but there's beautiful pages with soul-soothing stuff is what I'm hoping it is. And then at the end of the book, we even put a little pocket for any extra photos, and cards that somebody's giving you that you just don't want to throw away, or and I wrote a little postcard that's a picture of me and Griffin, actually, and I wrote a little note to the reader on the back. So this is a little Easter egg, as my husband calls it. We wanted to make it special, and something that when you finish, you feel that you took the time to commemorate and devote to your being, your animal being. So that's the book. I'm really hoping you guys, love it. I'm going to read a little part, which it was really hard for me to pick which part to read because it is so holistic, and there are so many different aspects to it. And this part is much more of the memoir kind of part, but it kind of leads you into how it all began. So yes, I will begin reading this. Okay, so see, this says, who do you dedicate this book to? And you write your animal's name in there. Guys, okay. So I start with a quote that says, until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened. That's by Anatole France. And chapter 1, how I got here. I had known Griffin was sick for almost a year before he died. And that year, I'm already starting, I told you guys it was gonna happen. That year was torturous. It was almost unbearable, actually. It was daily pills, it was raw food diets, and pretty much every animal specialist in Los Angeles had their turn. Nothing was making him better. It was months and months of MRIs, vet trips, and credit card bills while my poor cat was becoming short of breath and losing feeling in different limbs. Chopping up little white pills became the norm, but he took those meds like a champ at first. But by the end, he'd had enough. He would hear the pill bottle rattle and stare down at the floor defeated. He was tired, he was fed up, and I didn't blame him. I'd wake up to see his tiny face and I'd wonder if he'd make it through another day. He'd become such a part of me. 10 years later, this is happening. I couldn't really imagine what life would be like without him. I remember the twisting feeling in my chest as I shuffled to the bathroom one early morning. It was still dark, but I could make out his funny little silhouette and his giant saucer eyes slow blinking at me. I slumped over on the toilet and I sobbed as he crawled over to my feet. He looked up at my face, letting out a tiny mew as if to say, why so grim? Because I thought I was going to lose my little companion, my soulmate. And it was sinking in. So sorry, guys. And then when it finally happened, I couldn't quite accept it that he was actually gone. I'd had other animals, I'd experienced other deaths, but this pain was different somehow. It was sharp and confusing. It had a name all of its own, and it seemed to follow me like a shadow. Griffin was a Devon Rex. If you've ever seen that particular breed of cat, you'll know that they appear much more like an alien monkey hybrid than your typical feline. He was the color of an apricot with wrinkly skin and huge pale green eyes. His coat looked like crushed velvet and felt like cotton. Some people thought he was strange looking. I thought he was the most amazing creature I'd ever seen. Sorry. Griffin had no hunting game whatsoever. In fact, when our dumpy one-bedroom apartment was invaded by rats, Griffin pretty much invited them in to hang out. He befriended the rats. He never hissed or scratched or bit even when he was in his gravest pain. He smelled like a beanbag, and he was unique and clever and kind. I loved that cat. He brought me pure joy and also intense heartbreak. After he died, I had people everywhere reminding me that this was just an animal. It was a pet. Animals don't live that long, the taxi driver said, trying to console me as I quietly wept in the back of his car the day that Griffin died. It's okay, sweetheart. Go get another one. You'll feel much better. He meant well. I decided, with the help from what I knew to be societal norms, that it would be appropriate to hide the pain far, far away. So I pushed the memories and anguish into the corners of my mind and photos or other reminders into the dark, dusty spaces of desk drawers. Phew, I could pretend to be normal again. Months went by, life went on, of course. I actually did get another cat, a stray ginger who needed a home, and then a puppy from a local rescue. My house was filled with animals that needed to be loved. I feel like I'm crying off my eyelashes again. Sorry, guys. I tried to be pretty. Sorry. I decided, with the help from what I knew to be societal norms. I already read this part. I could pretend to be normal again. Months went by. I got my ginger cat who needed a home, then a puppy from a local rescue, and my house was filled with animals that needed to be loved. And they were loved in spades, but the loss of Griffin was still everywhere. Every so often, the truth would whisper from those hiding spots. No matter what pretty Band-Aid I stuck over my heart, the wound remained right there. It was real. And life is doing that thing it sometimes does, where it finds you at your weaker points. And then it throws a whole bunch of other complications your way to see if you can take it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Work, money, family, all of it at its ugliest, scrambled up and tossed into my world. Here, catch this mess. Well, I caught it, all of it. I just couldn't seem to figure out what to do with this collection of problems in my already shaky grasp. My nerves were shot. I felt lost and unlike myself. I was what you'd call going through the motions, barely. And worst of all, I couldn't sleep. If you've ever experienced insomnia, you'll understand the word frustrating. No, frustrating. You're tired beyond belief, and yet you lie there watching the numbers on the clock flip forward. It's like time is mocking your impossible situation. Sleep deprivation becomes its own entity, and you know there's nothing you can do to fight this wide-awake monster. But you try, oh, you try, until you see the sun coming out, and you can only hope that tonight will be different. And sometimes it is. Sometimes the right combination of herbs, or when I'm really desperate, over-the-counter sleep aids does the trick. Not this time. So, with the urging of my worried husband, I went to see a doctor, a psychiatrist, to be frank. I had my own preconceived notions of about this kind of treatment. But at this point, I had my own preconceived notions about this kind of treatment. But at this point, I just knew I had to find my own way back to sleep. Sorry. A friend had told me how the appointment would most likely go, that these were the kinds of doctors who would ask you to describe the problem, nod a couple times, scribble something on a little slip of paper, and send you on your way, painless. Well, the woman who met me at the door to her office did not fit that mold at all. She was immediately engaging and relatable. She was wise and centered, with an intense focus that was now fixed upon me. I knew as soon as I introduced myself to her that I wasn't going to get off that easy. She wanted to know my family history, my upbringing, the theme song to my own personal sob story. She asked detailed questions that required difficult, honest answers. I gave her an abbreviated, detached version. I mainly looked at my hands while I spoke. I assured her that I'd covered a lot of this stuff in therapy before, that I wasn't here to get into my roller coaster ride of a childhood. "What are you here for?" she said. "I can't sleep." "But why can't you sleep?" "Well, it's all that stuff I just told you, the family drama and work, and also," Yes. "Also my cat," I said, and this was when I began to break. He died. And I don't know what to do because I miss him so much. The mess was unfolding. "What was his name?" she said. "He was Griffin, and he was my baby and my buddy, and I really loved him, and I know he was an animal," but I couldn't finish. "What color was he?" "Orange, kind of. He had these huge ears," I said. "How did he die?" "Heart failure. He was only 7, but he got sick somehow." My doctor looked at me. She squinted her eyes. "Interesting," she said. "In some cultures, people believe that an animal will take on the burden or the disease of the person they love to give them some relief from whatever hardship they might be carrying." I just stared at her. "Oh, I just find it interesting because it seems to me in our short session that you've had a lot of heartbreak in your life, from every angle, heartbreak. And this animal, this Griffin, you clearly had some deep, perhaps spiritual connection with, ended up dying of a sick heart. Interesting." And then she pulled out her little notepad and began to scribble. I will give you a prescription that should help you sleep, she said. But it seems to me you need to learn how to mourn your cat. And just like that, the loss of my beloved pet had been taken seriously by a professional. My pain had been validated with a few compassionate words, and I knew that I had to learn to grieve properly. That night, I pulled out the printed photos of Griffin that I'd hidden deep inside my desk. I gave myself permission to miss him as I set them down beside me, a sweet stack of memories that I didn't have to ignore anymore. I was tired of faking it. Then I took out my journal and I wrote. Man, oh man, did I write. I wrote about everything that he'd been with me in his 7.5-year life, the breakups, the moves, the triumphs, and the many, many failures. I wrote about what he represented to me. He'd witnessed so much of my life. I wrote about the guilt and the pain and the joy, and then I wrote some more. It's hard to explain the feeling that I had that night, journaling out all I'd been holding on to since losing him. But I knew that I was not clutching onto the pain quite as tightly when I was done. And the release felt honest. It felt right. And what do you know? For the first time in over 3 months, I slept. With each subsequent therapy session, I was able to talk more freely. I realized that I desperately needed someone to validate my pain, my eyelashes, to validate these feelings of loss, to legitimize my pain. I had tried to erase the animal that had shown me nothing but love, but instead he should have been remembered, celebrated even. Throughout the years of following Griffin's death, I dove into the idea of grief, of mourning an animal. I allowed myself the right, the privilege of honoring his life. It took time and some very uncomfortable moments, but the true healing that evolved was worth it. So here I am, and now I am going to take you and your loss seriously. You're not alone in this difficult time. I will pass on any advice or helpful insights I've learned along this path of mourning Griffin. I will offer up the memoirs, eulogies and tributes of others who have dealt with the loss of their own sweet animals, because they deserve to be remembered. They do. They deserve to be honored, cherished, and mourned. And that is the most important part of what I've learned so far. So that's that chapter. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm an emotional wreck. It's just who I am. I'm gonna read one little other thing that I won't have to cry through. It's so much better than that part. It's just so you can kind of really see what the book is. It's the part that my editor forced me to put in, and I'm just so grateful she did, because I think it's very helpful. It's how to use this book. And even though you don't have it and you don't really need this very second, or maybe you do, it kind of will allow you to see what the book is, because it's more than that last part that I just bawled my eyes out through. How to use this book. So every day before I sat down to write Griffin's Heart, I cleared my mind and asked myself what my specific intention was in creating this book. What ultimately did I hope to accomplish? The answer was always the same. I wanted you, the reader, to feel like I was sitting on the couch with you. Throw blankets optional. Or at a cozy coffee shop, decaf after 2 p.m., please. Listening, commiserating a little, letting you cry or vent as often as you needed, but also gently nudging you toward the lighter part of yourself, the version of you that evolves after the death of someone you love. And then, when you've turned the last page, you will have created something of your own, a personalized keepsake full of precious memories, photos, and your own healing words that will both document and honor a very special life lived. I'm offering up this book to serve as a friend who will wait patiently as you take all the time that you need to heal. I have shared my own deeply personal anecdotes in the hope that you too will allow yourself the space to be truly vulnerable. I want you to know that I am with you. Every word is sincerely from my heart to yours. Every page has been planned out with meticulous deliberation. My wish is that it will serve as a roadmap through your grief and that it will lead you to the other side as gracefully and full of love as possible. And then I give tips on how to use this book. Before you start this journey, I urge you to print out any photos of your animals. There's plenty of print places online. If you have trouble, blah, 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 you get it. I will give you thoughts to contemplate, then space to write or unload, if you will, throughout this book. If at any point you do not feel it will serve you to write or read, please don't. You can come back to it with feelings less raw or just skip it altogether. The time it takes to get through this book will be based on where you are in the grief process. Maybe you'll finish the whole thing in one sitting. That's great. Maybe you'll need to keep it on the bedside table and read a page per day. Also good. Listen to yourself and stop when you've had enough. Go for a walk, distract yourself. Let what you've read or wrote marinate. Things usually make more sense when we give them a little space. I do recommend sticking to the suggested order. Each part feeds off the other one and was carefully placed where it is for a reason. There are a lot of breathing exercises. Breath is hindered by heartbreak. It really is. So I'm going to try to help you get back in touch with yours. Some of the tools will be practical, others whimsical. Some are activities to access a different part of yourself and contribute to your healing as a whole. Try to keep an open mind and be kind to yourself. Always remember this book is for you. Make it work in whatever way you need it to. I want it to bring you comfort and peace and maybe even a tiny bit of closure. This is the book I wish I'd had when my animal soulmate, my Griffin, died. That's it. Thank you guys so much. Again, I'm Canadian, so I constantly am apologizing. Here I am apologizing because I'm crying. But I'm really grateful you guys came. And thank you so much. I'm going to give it back to Jonathan. He's going to dole out some books. And the book is majorly on sale because of you guys right now. For we got $10 off. He'll tell you all that. But thank you guys.
I think, thank you, Reagan, first of all, for sharing yourself with all of us. I don't think any of us feel you have anything to apologize for, but I'm pretty sure there's not a dry eye in the house anymore. So I think the next thing we're going to do, everybody, is if anyone has a question for Reagan, paste it into the chat and we'll get through those and she can answer those. Or if you're more comfortable doing the hand raise function through Zoom, you can do that and we'll unmute you so that you can ask your question. If you don't have a question, that's fine too. If there's anything you want to say or ask or remark, feel free to do that. And so we'll do that for a little bit. So we have one already from Robert Silver. So let's see.
I'm not naturally a pet person,
Okay.
but I became one
Oh.
over the course of our little dog Shadow's life with us for 15 years.
Oh.
And I really fell in love with this dog. I didn't know that could happen for me with a pet. And I mentioned I even wrote an elegy for him. And every time I read it, I cry.
Oh, you have to send it to us. I would love to read that. I would love, love, love that.
I sent your father-in-law a copy.
Oh, well, I'd love to see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Does anyone have any questions or anything? You can use the chat, that's fine. Give it a any last things you want to add, Reagan? Anything else?
Oh God, I think I just put it all out there. I'm gonna have to recover from that for the next few days, but yeah.
All right, well, I think the next thing we're gonna do is give away some copies of this book, which is kind of fun. And we're gonna do it completely randomly. There's not gonna be any sort of, nobody has any bigger chance than the other people. Actually, before we do that, we have a question here from Katie Featherstone, and she asks, why do you think your bond with Griffin was so unique? The time in your life, Griffin himself?
So That's a great question. Probably both. I don't know. It's so hard to say. I think it was all of the above. I think, there's something about, there's like that je ne sais quoi about love in general. There's all the obvious answers why you love somebody, animal, human. But then there's this other part that you can't ever really explain. He was just good. He was good right to his core. And he had these eyes. Even our one of our dear friends, Scott, who you would never expect him to say something like this, but he used to say, he just looks at you like he knows. And it was true. Yeah, he was, I don't know. I also do think it was you can love differently at different parts of your life. And, he was just such a source of comfort for me for so long. And yeah.
And here we have another question from Anna White.
Hi, Reagan. I was bawling. I had to get up and get more tissue.
I love you. Thanks.
I named my S Corp after my 2 childhood dogs, so I totally get it. The only time I've actually considered getting a tattoo is something like in memory of them. I haven't, because I don't want the ink. I don't know if I'm allergic. Not that I am, but sometimes people are. My question for you is, have you ever thought about getting a tattoo, or do you have a tattoo in memory of any of your pets?
It's so interesting that you said that, because I actually am my parents are on here, so I shouldn't be saying that. Plug your ears. But it's going to be a matter of time before I do have a tattoo. It's going to be a little bit more abstract, but it will be. It's kind of a bit of an abstract tattoo, more of it's this symbol of an archangel, the archangel who looks over animals. And I'm not religious, but I just love that notion of that. And that would be a tribute to Griffin and all the animals that we've lost, I think.
I love that idea.
Thank you, Anna. We're getting more questions in the chat, which is nice. The next one's from Erin Karpla, and she asks, I'm curious, what was your hardest day writing and your best day writing? Oh, you're muted again.
Hi. That's a great question. As you can probably guess, I cried a lot while I wrote this book. But there's the bad cry and there's the good cry. And I think it was always the cathartic kind of cry when I was writing. Throughout the book, there are, I'm trying to guide the reader to remember the part before the end. It's so hard after something painful happens to remember all. The reason why we love our animals is because they were so amazing. We had all these amazing memories, but the end is so hard that it kind of eclipses that sometimes. So I tried to remember a lot of the sweeter moments. Just to rewire and rethink about that. I had so much guilt after Griffin died. I couldn't be there with him at the end. And that was really, really hard. So I had to write about that. That was hard, but I knew that I do believe that, what we resist persists. So if you're not being honest about how you're feeling and honest about the guilt, honest about real things that I do feel like I did wrong in the situation, you kind of can't let them go. So those were harder moments and those were harder days, but then I always made sure to write something good after, to remember why I was hurting in the first place, is because he was awesome.
Thank you, Erin. The next question is from Lauren, and it's, what is your favorite memory of Griffin?
Oh my God, I have so many amazing. I think every day with him was so amazing. I do love, and I do write about this in the book, but I do love that first moment I saw him, and that's the first time ever I saw Your Face chapter, and I just remember seeing him for the first time and being in shock. I had never seen an animal that looked like him. I had no idea that he was going to come with basically no fur. And guys, also, by the way, this was before I really knew about rescuing animals and how important that was. I was young and a bit not very naive. And we needed a cat that was hypoallergenic. So since then I've only rescued. I'm just putting that out there. I'm a huge rescue advocate. So but Griffin came with no fur, and he was sticky, and he had these giant ears and these humongous eyes, and he was not shy. I mean, he came prancing over and just like sniffing at me and looking at me like, who are you? And that will always stay in my head because I was madly, obsessively in love with him immediately, and also confused by how strange he looked. Yeah, I think that's got to be my favorite, just because that was just more to come. He was the kind of cat that could go on a leash and would never needed a cat carrier or anything like that. He would give you paw. He did all the tricks. He was just an amazing little creature.
Thank you, Lauren, for that question. Our next question is from Anna Cooperman, and she had raised her hand.
Hello.
Hello. Reagan, it was beautiful to hear you read from your book. I know everyone was touched and moved by that, and I truly believe you have sprinkled some magic fairy dust on Griffin wherever he is. And my question is, what do you think Griffin would say about this tremendous accomplishment in this beautiful book?
He'd probably just be like, Mom, chill out, just take a breath and chill out. But hopefully, we want to be giving, back to charity through this process. And that's a big desire for me. So hopefully he'll know that maybe this little book that's devoted to him will end up helping other animals eventually that need some help.
Great. Thank you very much, Anna.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question is from Shell. And Shell asks, is there a stage of grief you found harder to write, than the rest to write about? I've been writing my grief for myself, and the denial stage is hard to both acknowledge and write personally. So is there a stage of grief that is the hardest for you to write about?
Oh, that's a great question. They have the 5 stages of grief, the Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grief that have now turned into 6 stages of grief. And my brain needs to be, I am a very right-brained person. I think more esoterically, just naturally. So I found the stages of grief actually really difficult to go to read about when I'm in grief, because I'm like, I don't want somebody to tell me how I'm feeling, and it was just too academic. I think they're great to look back on after you've kind of moved through them. Denial is tough for sure. I can understand that. The new stage of grief that he's added is finding meaning, and I'm digressing a bit, but I love that. I feel like that's kind of what I needed to really appreciate all those stages that he's written about. Denial is hard. I think just the fluctuation when you think you're kind of over it, or you've moved through it, and then you find out you're not through it. I think, you'll go to, I don't know if I ever had anger after losing Griffin. I had so much guilt. I had just racked with guilt. I don't know. They're all hard, right? It's all hard. I don't know. And I'm sorry for your loss.
Well, thank you, Shell. And thank you, Reagan. The next question is from Courtney. But actually, there's questions from Courtney's husband, Ralph.
Oh, okay.
And Ralph asks, what do you do, or what do you advise when you encounter people who don't take it seriously when you share the loss?
Oh, well, there is a whole chapter called Some People Just Don't Get It. And I tried to be kind in that section, because most people actually really mean well. And, I think it's just about setting boundaries and protecting yourself. I write a loosely comic version in the book about how to deal with people who might not get it. And I think it's hard for me to say it out loud, but I try to have fun with it. Try not to take things too seriously. Some people just genuinely won't understand. And so maybe don't share it with them. Maybe don't talk to, everybody about the way you're feeling, because inevitably it's, when people say those things, it actually is hurtful. And especially if you're in that vulnerable state. I write a few snarky responses, but as a joke in the book, but ultimately what I'm really saying is, just protect yourself and open up the book, get it out there, call a friend who really does get it, or, there's so much online support for people now. And that's actually is why I wrote the book. So people have this safe space where they don't have to worry about somebody saying something that might be hurtful.
Well, I hope that helped, Ralph, answer that question. Thank you again, Reagan. The next question is from Andrea, and Andrea asks, if Griffin could speak, what do you think his voice would sound like?
Oh my God, that's a funny question. Oh gosh, yeah. I think that he would sound, I think that he would have a little raspy boy voice. And I'm not going to do it, Andrea. I know that's what you're wanting me to do right now. I'm not taking the bait, but he would sound like a little raspy boy voice. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Andrea. And we're getting lovely comments too, and people sharing wonderful things in the chat. Christine, Brianna, Robert Silver thinks that we should do a live book tour once the pandemic is over. So that's something to think about. Here's a question from Carolyn Check. Carolyn asks, do you think our pets would be okay with us rescuing another after losing them, as opposed to feeling replaced or forgotten? Because I guess that is something that Carolyn has struggled with herself when she rescued another dog.
I write a lot about this kind of thing in the book. It's so hard to sum up in one little answer, but it's in the chapter called Hope, because that's us getting caught up in thoughts that they're just not helpful. I genuinely believe animals are so pure and good, and if you are saving another animal's life after your animal has passed, and your animal loves you so unconditionally. Maybe they didn't want another animal in the house while you were there. Maybe that's the kind of animal it was, but when you're gone, they want you to be taken care of and they want you to be happy. That is my belief. And at the same time, you have to take the time you need to get there, to get to that place. And you just have to, some people are ready right away and some people take years. I hope that the book and the way I felt and talking about in the book, that it gets you to that place a little more smoothly. I struggled with that too.
Thank you, Reagan. Thank you, Karen. Yeah. Our next question is from Stacy Factor. Stacy asks, have you been able to forgive yourself by writing the book?
It definitely helped. It definitely helped. There's always this pang there. And what I've kind of realized, forgiveness, not just in this realm, but forgiveness in everything is just finding compassion. So is there an end game where you don't feel any guilt anymore? I don't know if that will happen for me, but I have much more compassion for myself. And I have been able to go, well, maybe I can feel a bit of guilt for that, but what about all the other things I did that were the good things that I did, and just a way of thinking more positively. But I really love that. I love the idea that forgiveness is just finding compassion for yourself or for anybody. So you don't have to have an end game where you're just clean and resolved and you don't have any, feelings left that, resemble guilt, but you can always go back to having compassion and understanding the why.
Well, thank you very much, Stacy, and thank you, Reagan. I also wanted to mention something that I had, I forgot if I said this earlier, but for everybody who's joining us today, $2 is being donated to the Chris Kelly Foundation, which is an incredible nonprofit. They're dedicated to saving animals from abuse and neglect, and it's a foundation that means a lot to Reagan. So that's something wonderful for animals that's also happening as a result of us all being together today, which is nice. Does anybody have any final questions? Anything else? All right. Well, then what we're gonna, here's one more from Lauren. Lauren asks, if you could say anything to Griffin right now, what would it be? That's what she almost asked, but what she's going to ask is, if you could ask Griffin any question, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. It would just be, are you out there somewhere in some other form of energy? Oh, I mean, isn't that the question everybody wonders about? Could there possibly be a way that you're still out there? And if so, I hope that you're hanging out with us somewhere. I don't know.
Well, thank you, everybody. Those questions were absolutely lovely. And all of these comments, everything that's been asked here is lovely too and said. And it's clear that just learning about the book and hearing from Reagan has already meant a lot to so many of you, which is wonderful to see. And now 3 of you are going to get very lucky because we're going to give away some copies of the book. So the way we're going to do this, there's 4 pages here. We're going to give away 3 copies. So first, we're going to figure out which of these 4 pages, we're going to do 3 of the 4 pages, basically. Somebody's going to win from those. So give me just a sec. I'm going to pull out my little random generator here. And we're going to do a little spin. And there's going to be a little sound effect. You can't see it on the screen right now, but you're going to hear a little festive sound effect. So get ready for that. Wasn't that just triumphant? Okay, so that's number 1. So somebody from page 1 is gonna win a book. Let's do our second one here.
Oh, geez.
And if you're gonna hear the sound effect again for a 3rd time soon. So if anybody wants to do a little dance or whatever, that's fine. I'm not gonna do it. Okay, so that was number 2. That was page 2. So somebody from page 2 is going to win. So this is the last page spin here. And that's from page 4. Okay, so I see 20 of you per page. So what we're going to do, put in 1 through 20, and we're going to do a random spin to see which number person is going to win from page 1. So here we go. There probably is a way to mute that little noise, but it's so fun. Who would want to do that? Okay, so from page 1, it's going to be the 17th person. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I think it's
12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So that's Allison McLean Merrill.
Oh, cool.
Allison, you have won.
Yay.
If you want to private message your address to me, we can mail that to you. There's also an email address here that I'm going to paste into the chat. And if you're more comfortable sending your information to the email address, that's completely fine too. So here,
thank you.
Actually, sorry, I didn't get it. Everybody did it. All right. Okay. So Allison, yeah, if you can message me, directly and give me that info, that would be great. Okay. Now we're gonna see who from page 2 wins the book. Okay, believe it or not, that's the 2nd person on page 2, which is Heather Sullivan. So Heather, if you want to private message me in the chat, or send the email. I don't know if that went through because it looks like it was sent as a direct.
It didn't go through.
Okay. There we go. There, everybody get that? see that in the chat, there is an email address. If you want to send your address, Allison and Heather, to that email address, then we'll mail the book out to you. Okay, so we're going to do one more of these little jaunty drawings here. And this is going to be for the winner on page 4. And you never have to hear that again. Okay, so that's going to be the 5th person. So that's Lori Shapiro.
Aw.
So Lori, just like with everybody else, if you want to private message your address, or you can send it to the email that I already pasted into the chat, which is hello@creaturesalignpress.com, and we'll get that book out to you.
Thank you, Reagan. That was awesome.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So once again, I want to congratulate Allison and Heather and Lori on winning copies of the book. So let's have a little round of applause for them.
Yay.
And I think Reagan has, I happen to know, a very, very early flight tomorrow morning. So I think she is bidding adieu to us all. Reagan, I
remember the book is on sale, huge sale right now. We're doing till midnight tonight. So if anyone wants to buy it, it's $10 off. So yeah, that's the other juicy part.
That is the juicy part. And I'm gonna paste the Amazon link too into the chat just as we wrap up. And so everybody can see that. As Reagan said, it's a $10 off sale and it ends at midnight. So from now until midnight, I'm hoping that everybody is going to furiously be buying copies of Reagan's book, be buying it for yourself, be buying it for your loved ones. You know, it's the perfect thing to give to anybody who's lost a pet recently, or who is mourning a pet who they lost 10 years ago. I mean, the feelings, as you can see, are strong and they remain. So it can be really beneficial for so many people. So let me actually just do that now. I'm going to paste in the Amazon link. So what you can, so there's the link, everybody. So you can visit this. You can text this to your friends and family. Post it on your Facebook. Tweet it, Instagram it, whatever you do. If you use a ham radio, you can read it out letter by letter. But remember that the sale for the $17.99 copy, so $10 off, only goes through midnight tonight. So fast and furious. And then the one last thing I want to mention here is that if you've already read the book, or if you're ordering it and you get it, please leave reviews if you feel so inclined on the Amazon page. That's really, really helpful and wonderful, and that is just one more way that we can make sure that people who need this book, who are suffering and who would find so much comfort from it, can get it into their hands. So that means a lot to us. So I think that's probably it for this. I'm going to stay on here as people bid farewell. But again, thank you very much, Reagan.
So much, Jonathan. Thank you so much, everybody. Go have a good night.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all very much, and have a lovely Sunday evening.